Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O. Today, March 24th, 2023. Hey Paula, glad you like the music today and every day. That's awesome. Hey, we're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 7. And you can always check out the archives of the devotions at my YouTube channel at Beauouellette. That's BEAUOUELLETTE. And we can you can go through a lot of books of the Bible that we go through. Boy, we've gone through a lot. So we're in 2 Kings 7 right now. And this is a wonderful, interesting narrative on this guy Elisha, who's a prophet. And chapter 7 is a continuation of the narrative that we just went over in chapter 6. So there's not like a new feature in this chapter, in chapter 7. It's actually a continuation. The story actually continues. So basically the king of Aramean, a land from the north of Israel, has besieged the capital of the northern tribes of Israel. And it has created a starvation situation where the king already doesn't like the prophet Elisha, and because he's been given over to idols and false worship. And you know, the prophets tell him kind of what God's really thinking, and a lot of them don't like it, right? They want to think that they're doing the right thing, and they, you know, they're the ruling class, the ruling power, and they got everything together, and they know what they're doing, and they really know. You know, these prophets, they're just down there, you know, kind of thing. And so it's this conflict between government and God and Yahweh through the prophets. The prophets become the spokesperson for the holy God, because the holy God is holy, and he's not going to dwell with sinful human beings. There is a separation between God and the people at this point. And there's this, during this sieging of Samaria by the Arameans, there's been this little story of this this woman who comes to the king and says, "Hey, I made a pact with this other woman that we would eat her child first, and then my child. We would eat our children." I mean, this is how bad it's gotten, right? Everybody's starving to death. And so it is super desperate situations going on. And when the king hears from this woman who's talking this way, he is absolutely crushed, and he puts on a burlap, some kind of awful material and itchy stuff, and he's kind of in mourning, this visible sign of his mourning and sadness of what's going on. But his answer to it is, you know what, I gotta kill Elisha. Why? Maybe because of the prophet's previous decisions, and he doesn't agree with them. And so here we go. Elisha replies in chapter 7. Listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord says. By this time tomorrow, in the markets of Samaria, 5 quarts of choice flour will cost only 1 piece of silver, and 10 quarts of barley grain will cost only 1 piece of silver. The officer assisting the king said to the man of God, "That couldn't happen even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven." So Elisha seems to indicate to the servant of the king that the famine's going to be done. And the servant questions, the prophet and goes, I don't think that's true. And so you see a questioning. Hey, nothing's wrong with questioning, wondering, hey, what is that? What is this? Is that really true? If someone comes up to you and says, hey, I got a word from the Lord, nothing's wrong with questioning those things. Hey, is that true? I mean, I don't know, because we sometimes don't know. Now, this person questions the prophet, but Elisha said, "You will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it." Wow. So he says, you're going to see it, but you ain't going to partake of it. Maybe it's because the way the heart was at this time. And by the way, the Bible does tell us to test all spirits to see whether or not they are from God. So, nothing's wrong, like I said, with questioning and testing things. Hey, is that really from the Lord? Here we see a judgment happening, and I would imagine it's because, the king and his crew have been pretty hard-hearted when it comes to Yahweh. And, they've criticized, of course, they want to kill Elisha, they wanted to kill his mentor Elijah, and it's just been ongoing, right? This tension between government and the people of God. If it wasn't for the people of God, the government would just go nuts, right? Would just go crazy and go its own direction. What kind of keeps it kind of restraining is the church, right? The people of God, the assembly, that's questioning. No, that's wrong, da 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 da. But if there was no restraint like that, then it would just kind of flow, right? Just kind of go. But those hearts of those in government in Israel are super stiff-necked. And Elisha says, hey, you're going to see everything. You're going to see, the blessing, but you're not going to be able to take it. You're not going to eat it. You're not going to partake of it. You'll see it, but you won't partake. I wonder how many people see today, but they don't really partake, right? Yeah, they see the things of Christ. Yeah, they know about Jesus. They know about his offer of salvation. Everything's right there. They drive down the road every day, and there's a church on every day. They drive by it, but they never partake. Yeah, it's interesting. It says, now there were 4 men with leprosy sitting at the entrance of the city gates. Why should we sit here waiting to die? They asked each other. We will starve if we stay here. But with the famine in the city, we will starve if we go back there. So we might as well go out and surrender to the Aramean army. If they let us live, so much the better. But if they kill us, we would have died anyway. So kind of a real desperate choice here. So at twilight they set out for the camp of the Arameans. But when they came to the edge of the camp, no one was there, for the Lord had caused the Aramean army to hear the clatter of speeding chariots and the galloping of horses, and the sound of a great army approaching. So they hear gigantic things coming at them. And the king of Israel has hired the Hittites and Egyptians to attack us, they cried to one another. So they panicked and ran into the night, abandoning their tents, horses, donkeys, and everything else, and they fled for their lives. Okay. And it says, when the lepers arrived at the edge of the camp and went into one tent after another, eating and drinking wine, then they carried off silver and gold and clothing and hid it. Finally, they said to each other, this is not right. This is a day of good news, and we aren't sharing it with anyone. If we wait until morning, some calamity will certainly fall upon us. Come on, let's go back and tell the people at the palace. So they went back to the city and told the gatekeepers what had happened. We went out to the Aramean camp, they said, and no one was there. The horses and donkeys were tethered, and the tents were all in order, but there wasn't a single person around. Then the gatekeeper shouted the news to the people in the palace. Now, I kind of think it's cool what the lepers do here. They go into the enemy camp. They're thinking they're going to go in there with a story. Hey, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they'll kill us, maybe they won't. But they go in, and the Lord causes, and it's interesting, this sovereignty of God, right? God causes this thing to happen, right? Where the enemies, the Aramean army hears this clattering and sound of chariots, and they go running off. They go booking it. And so no one's in the camp, and these lepers come in and they partake of all the food and etc. But what I love about the lepers is it kind of hits them like, man, we want other people to partake in the blessing. And so what do? They go out and tell people, right? Hey, man, we got to go tell people about the good news. What has just happened? Hey, do I have a heart to want to tell people about the good news? Meaning the good news of salvation, the good news that Jesus died for them, for their sins, that they can be forgiven, that they can have peace in their life, knowing that when they die, and they will die, that you will be where Christ is. You will have peace. You will have serenity. You will be able to approach God. And that's the biggie. Are you ready to approach God? It's do you think you're going to go before God and tell God a few things? I mean, think of how small you and I are in the universe. We're like a speck, right? Do you think you, with my tiny little brain, is going to be able to go before God and say, "Oh God, you didn't do the right things, and you should have done this, and you should have done that"? I don't think it's going to happen that way. We're going to need some saving for sure. We're going to need some salvation for sure to approach a deity, a God, the God. And so, the good news becomes great news because it's free. You're saved by grace through faith. And I love it. That's the good news. You get to share that with people. So I wonder if my heart's like the lepers here, where I see something cool, so awesome, and I want to share it with other people. So the king got out of his bed in the middle of the night and told his officers, "I know what has happened. The Arameans know we are starving, so they have left the camp and have hidden in the fields. They are expecting us to leave the city, and then they will take us alive and capture the city." So the king thinks, oh man, there's got to be a plan of the Arameans to get us. Have you ever had a case of paranoia that something's going to happen? It's going to happen to you. That kind of thing. Like, man, I know the shoe's going to drop. I know God's grace can't be enough. Nope, there's got to be an attachment of some calamity to it because it's just too good to be true kind of thing. So here the king gets up in the middle of the night and says, hey, something's going on. One of his officers replied, "We had better send out scouts to check into this. Let them take 5 of the remaining horses. If something happens to them, it will be no worse than if we stay here and die with the rest of us." And they die with the rest of us. So two chariots with horses were prepared, and the king sent scouts to see what had happened to the Aramean army, and went all the way to the Jordan River, following a trail of clothing and equipment that the Arameans had thrown away in their mad rush to escape. The scouts returned and told the king about it. Then the people of Samaria rushed out and plundered the Aramean camps. So it was true that 5 quarts of choice flour were sold that day for 1 piece of silver, and 10 quarts of barley grain were sold for 1 piece of silver, just as the Lord had promised. So they went out, set out scouts. Hey, is this really true? Yep, God's sure to his promise. That's a good note this morning. God is true to his promise. I can trust the promises of God. And, Jesus said, don't let your heart be troubled. Believe in God. If you believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would tell you. But if I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may be also. And that's a promise to us. Do I trust it? Do I believe it today? What are the promises of God? Do you know the promises of God? Are you familiar with the promises of God? Even the beautiful, simple things, little short things in the Bible, right? God will never leave you nor forsake you. Do you know that promise? Do you hold kind of your anchor into the ground, your soul on that promise that God would never leave you, that he will keep in perfect peace the one whose mind is set on him? Are you trusting the promises today? So everything happened exactly as the man of God had predicted when the king came to his house. The man of God had said to the king, by this time tomorrow in the markets of Samaria, 5 quarts of flour will cost one piece of silver, 10 quarts of barley will cost 1 piece of silver. The king's officer had replied, that couldn't happen even if the Lord opened the windows of heaven. And the man of God had said, you will see it happen with your own eyes, but you won't be able to eat any of it. And so it was, for the people trampled him to death at the gate. Ooh, wow. He saw it, but he didn't get a chance to partake it. Sometimes we're, in a sense, we're spiritually trampled, emotionally trampled. When we refuse the promises of God, what's happening is we're getting trampled by all other things that we are trusting. It's not that we're not trusting something. We are trusting something. We're just trusting a different authority. That's all. That's what people are doing all over the world right now. It's either we're going to trust, what Jesus said about the reality of life, or I'm going to trust someone else's, what they say about the reality of life. And that's how it goes. Where are you getting your news? That's it. News becomes a source of a spokesperson for someone, something. And that's how that's how, instead of becoming maybe a good prophet that speaks forth the word of God, the news becomes a false prophet, right? You get trampled by the false prophet news, right? A system of saying what is true, and when really it might not be, and it just might be some kind of propaganda, that kind of thing. And so I see here where the person, instead of trusting in the promises, right? Instead, what they do is they trust the wrong authority. It's not that they're not trusting something. It's just they trust the wrong authority, right? And when you have 2 different people telling you something, you have a decision to make. Who am I going to trust? Do I trust this person? Do I trust this centralized power structure? Or do I trust maybe just this one little prophet? How do I trust this corporation, or do I trust this one little prophet? You could see how even in Jesus's day it was like that, right? Do I trust this one little person from Nazareth? This Galilean? Or do I trust the power structure, the religious power structure? What do I trust? Who do I trust? Those kind of things. And that's why we're told, that the best thing to do is we have to test all things. We have to test all things. Hey, is this one pointing me to God? Is this one not pointing me to God? Is this pointing me to rely on God? Is this not pointing me to rely on God? Is this getting me all paranoid about things I can't, really do anything about? Or is this one helping me to trust in the promises of God? Where are these news sources leading me to? Where are they pointing me to? What are they pointing me to trust? Where's my my reliance? What am I relying on? And those are some big topics today in our world, no doubt about it, right? If you want power, then you need to stay in power. And in order to stay in power, you gotta win over the people. And so, or just force people, right? You can coerce or force, or manipulate, things like that. So we have to look at what is the authority. Elisha, they don't listen to him. And so now they get, that person gets trampled, and that's what we do. We get trampled by other people, other thoughts, right? That spiritual trampling, that I'm talking about, that goes on. We get bombarded by other things instead of looking to the promises of God. So a very cool short devotion, really, just on really trusting in the prophet, trusting in the prophecies, trusting in the words of God. We have a revelation from God. It's this, it's like, read it, learn it, get to know it. And that's what we're doing here on the devotion, right? Just moving through one chapter at a time. And so here, we're done with chapter 7, and we'll continue on the kind of story of Elisha. And remember, he's going to have a double portion of everything of Elijah. So his story is a little longer. His narrative's definitely longer. We see more of that double portion unveiled. Okay? So I hope you have a good day, a good weekend, and thanks for joining me a little earlier today. Okay? You guys take care. Bye-bye.